Tu mandasti mandata tua, custodiri nimis, utinam dirigantur viam ad custodiendas justificationes tuas.
This Sunday's Communion antiphon ends with a rather striking and very repetitive last line. On the words, ad custodiendas justificationes tuas, the melody spins around just 3 or 4 notes over and over again in a churning motion. Upon looking at this antiphon or singing through it for the first time, this repetition might seem tedious and unnecessary. But as one reflects on the words and is intentional about bringing out their meaning and natural accent, this last line comes to life, and even the constant repetition becomes something dynamic and exciting. But it takes a lot of practice for a singer to move from the initial rote repetition of individual notes to the free and lively proclamation of a sacred text. Though the goal of the singer is always to convey the text he sings and to make its meaning come alive for the listener, he cannot achieve this freedom and liveliness without first learning the antiphon note by note. It is the same way with God's law, which is the subject of today's antiphon. The psalmist recognizes God's command that his precepts be kept diligently, and his heart yearns to be able to follow these commandments perfectly. Would that my ways be guided toward the keeping of your statutes. And it is on these last words, ad custodiendas justificationes tuas, toward the keeping of your statutes, that the melody settles into this repeated, churning movement. The repetitive melody of the antiphon conveys the desire of the psalmist's heart, that his ways be constantly in keeping with God's commandments. He desires to be always pondering God's ways and to repeatedly follow what the Lord asks. And just like the singer's process of practice and learning, so the one who would follow God's law must learn and practice his decrees. At first, living according to God's ways may seem boring, lifeless, and difficult, like mere meaningless repetition. But it is the necessary first step on the path to life and freedom in God. This promise of freedom and life is what moves one's heart from the very beginning, such that they may persevere through all difficulties and arrive at the perfect love of God, which casts out all fear. As our Holy Father Benedict encourages us, do not be daunted immediately by fear and run away from the road that leads to salvation. It is bound to be narrow at the outset, but as we progress in this way of life and in faith, we shall run on the path of God's commandments, our hearts overflowing with the inexpressible delight of love.
Tu mandasti mandata tua, custodiri nimis, utinam dirigantur viam